Ready? Chris. So today we're going to be talking about Lord Slug, and this came out in 1991. It's an hour and 2 minutes, probably an hour and 2 minutes too long.
Right.
The plot of this is Lord Slug comes to invade Earth, and only Goku can stop him, which is actually a lie. Goku is not the only person that stops him, as we'll find out. This is a bad movie.
Yes.
Like, it's a very bad movie.
Yes.
Like, even in context, like, I was thinking about this in comparison to all the other movies that we've watched, and I'm just like, it was almost insufferable for me to get this. I had a beer last night. I think that's the only reason I got through Lord Slug, because it was very bad. And I was just like, now in remembering these things, like, the next movie, Cooler's Revenge, I watched a lot as a kid, so I remember that movie, like, even if I didn't watch that, I remember a lot of that movie. Lord Slug, I was like, what happens? Because I remember him, like, in his young form, but then I totally forgot that he was old in the beginning, and it was just like... So, we're talking about the villain. Lord Slug is a super Namekian. He was sent away to escape extinction on Namek. Like, we just made things up. We're just like, sure, they're super Namekians. Like, they lived a long time ago, like, before that.
Yeah, like, it was almost sort of like them that they did the same thing with Goku, well, that they did with the Lord Slug. They sent Goku away from planet Vegeta. They sent Lord Slug away from Namek.
Yeah, and I don't know. Like, we can talk about him a little later, but God, this. Luckily, the next movie steps away from this trope that we're about to talk about. And the last movie, we didn't have one in the last movie. We didn't have a musical number in the last movie, right?
Right.
Yeah. It's like every other one. I told you this is like playing into my theory that there is an A and a B team of like people that like this shit, and then the other people are like, no, this is insufferable. Like, I put Icarus is back, and he looks like a Vegas superstar now.
Yeah.
He's like decked out. Gohan's there, and I'm just like, what are we gonna do? And then the motherfucker starts dancing, and then Gohan's whistling is like, I don't know, he's a little kid, but then he's got this like old man whistle, and this shit goes on for a good 5 fucking minutes. Way too long. I was just like sitting there, and I was like, holy fuck, are we done yet? Like, this is miserable. I was like, I see why Piccolo wanted to rip his ears off. Like,
exactly, like we felt Piccolo's pain.
I know. I was like, so if that was their goal, for us to feel embodied in Piccolo, job well done. They did it. They made me hate Gohan and his fucking flying dragon thing.
And speaking of Piccolo, he's still at that damn waterfall.
Well, yeah, it's like he's just there, man. That's the only place Piccolo can be. He's like, there are 3 things about Piccolo, which, I mean, I do want to address once we're done with all of these, especially going into Superhero, because it is very Piccolo Gohan-centric, which is weird. I forgot how Piccolo and Gohan-centric all these movies are. Like, they're always together. Like, and then Goku's, like, off in the thing, you know?
Because Piccolo is the best dad.
Best dad. Like... And like, but the only thing in this scene, I just wish Piccolo had just kicked Gohan's ass and been like, "Stop bringing this fucking dragon and singing and dancing and whistling." Like, you're lucky that I'm like not your real dad, because I'd beat the shit out of you. Like,
should have at least used his super stretchy Namekian arms and just grabbed the fucking Ahaya dragon by the throat and threw it.
Yeah. So there's a lot of nonsense that happens in this movie, so we're just gonna skip right through this so we're not belaboring the point. So they're looking in the telescope, and they're like, oh, this goop is coming towards... It's an actual planet. It's like a planet, you know? I don't know why they call it goop. It's not goop. It's like a planet-sized thing, and they're trying to do the same thing to Earth. They're trying to just like terror freeze it.
Now, were you watching the sub or the dub?
I'm watching the dub.
Yeah, because so in the sub,
Yeah.
Dr. Briefs actually calls it like an asteroid or a planet.
Yeah, of course he does, because that makes sense. The dub is bad. The dub is always bad. The only reason I'm watching these in the dub is because when I watched them as a kid as a dub, but then majority of the time when I watched them subtitled. So I'm like, okay, but now I'm watching them dubbed, and it's like, I want to see them in the state that most people will watch them in, because this is like, when most people watch these, they're not going to watch. They're going to watch the dub version. So I need to know what these are as an adult, and they're bad. All the dialogue is bad. Like, and then like seeing there were some lines that I had to go back and look up, and I wanted to see what the translation was like. I'm like, they just made shit up. Like they're like, it's goop. I'm like, how does that make any sense? Like, it's not. And I assume in Japanese it was an asteroid or something, and it made sense. And like, oh my god, everybody. And that's the thing I hate is that like people are like, oh yeah, Goku's dumb, and I'm like, no, that is the translation of Goku. That is a choice because everything he says, he sounds like a moron, and Sean Schimmel makes that worse. He's like, "I'll get them. Hurting people is bad." You're just like, "Yeah, I get it, Goku." Like he just sounds like he's a moron, and that's all Sean Schimmel's fault. I blame him and Chris Sabat. Like, I know I probably get a lot of hate because I don't think a lot of people like them. I do not like Sean Schimmel as Goku. I don't mind Sean Schimmel. I just don't like his Goku. So anyway, that happens, and then a ship lands. A bunch of aliens come out, and they're like, I do think it's funny that all the people are just like laughing at them. They're just like, yeah, whatever. Like this has happened before or whatever. But of course, the same city is destroyed again.
Yes.
So I'm going to belabor my adult point of taxes. How is anybody living in this city still? Because now this is like the fourth time that this city has been destroyed. Their taxes have got to be like 36% now. For anything. You get milk, 36%. You're paying $28 for milk. Like...
Yeah, and the insurance is sky high.
Sky high. Like, I mean, like
you can't even afford the premium.
To rent, can you imagine, like, to rent, like, a sub shop down in, like, Central City? I don't know. See, if that happens, I mean, that's fine. They're just all making fun of them, which is pretty funny. I mean, Gohan goes in there, kicks some ass for a little bit. Gohan's, like, the only saving grace in this movie, because he's pretty all right. He at least is not, like, whiny. He goes and just fights. His dad's not there. Piccolo's not there. He just is like instinctively like, okay, I need to fight these guys, and he does, and that's pretty good. What do you think about the goons this time?
Well, the grunts,
yeah.
Like, well, why are they weak to sunlight? Like, well, why can they not handle that?
I guess that was the whole terror freezing thing. I was confused by that also. Like
the slightly more powered goons. Like I mean, they might be a little better than the goons for World's Strongest.
Oh yeah, but I think they're better than that, just because they have more personality, I think, than them. Like I will say that they did have like distinct personalities, at least, and they like worked out. Wingling Dragon Man, he was dumb. Piccolo just like kicked his ass in like 30 seconds.
Exactly, but they still go out like bitches.
Yeah, and then like little man with his little. I refuse to learn any of the goons' names. So if people are like, their name is, I don't care. They're all pointless. There's a bad guy and then three other. We're like, we have to have a quadrant of people. We have to have bad guy, 3 goons. I don't know why, but like, you can just have like one goon with a personality. I don't understand why we need 3 of them. Yeah. They're not even fighting separate people most of the time. It's usually just like, one fights Piccolo, and then Gohan's fighting, and then of course Gohan loses. Like, so all this to say that he loses his Dragon Ball. Yeah, because he's an idiot. I don't know how. Of course, his hat never falls off, except for this moment when it conveniently needs to happen.
And of course, Chi-Chi is partly to blame for that.
Chi-Chi's always the blame man. Yeah. She would just get out of the way.
But at least she actually jumped in and took out a couple goons.
I know what I'm saying. For once, like this movie has like glimpses of like cool things. Yeah. Right? Okay, Gohan's better in this movie. He doesn't start off better, but at least he fights. It's like tonally very weird because it's like.
Yeah, like that they bring some of the like old school like Dragon Ball into it, like Chi-Chi actually fighting and seeing some of what she can do, but then it's still a lot of the goofiness of the Dragon Ball dub that's just dumb.
Yeah, and so at that point, Piccolo saves Gohan again, and then he just blows that dude's head off. Like point blank, he's like, kills him. My man, I forgot how many like heads get blown off in these movies because you're just like, oh damn, like it's a kid show. We're whistling 10 minutes ago. Now we're blowing people's heads off. The tone is weird. Like, and then Lord Slug comes out. He's wishing he gets his Dragon Balls. Of course, Bulma's stupid and says something about the radar. They make women seem like they're morons in Dragon Ball, which sometimes Bulma is. Yeah. But she at least gets better, and Chi-Chi's pretty much the same though.
Yeah.
Chi-Chi doesn't change. She just
she doesn't change until she gives birth to Goten.
Yeah, I mean she's pretty much an Agatha Christie the whole show. Like she's just like nagging Gohan, nagging Goku. I'm just like, all right, we get it.
Yeah.
But so they find him, of course, in like 10 seconds. They're like zoop 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 zoop. They find all those. He wishes to be younger, of course. So it's like we got a mortal, and then this guy just wants to be young forever.
Yeah, at his most powerful.
At his most powerful, yeah. So
that part is important.
Yeah. Some of this is out of order. I know people are going to be like, "Well, that happened before." I'm like, "Yeah, this is just how I'm remembering like what's happening and what my notes are." So the annoying thing in this though is the Lord Slug keeps saying, "This must be the legendary Super Saiyan." Goku doesn't do anything.
No.
So at this point, I'm assuming Frieza is dead, like in the making of this movie, because obviously Frieza's dead in the next movie. So I'm assuming that Frieza is dead at this point, even though obviously none of this is canon. I'm just assuming when they were making this, Frieza's dead at this point.
Because this movie was released between episodes 89 and 90 of the Dragon Ball Z. Now, I haven't looked up exactly what those are, but if episodes 33 and 34, when World's Strongest was released, was Gohan, Krillin, and Bulma on their way to Namek.
Yeah.
Then obviously 89, 90, Frieza has to be dead.
Yeah, I feel like this is either like this is like right after probably Frieza's death, like so he can do Super Saiyan, like, or it's happening right after around the same time. But it's weird. I mean, obviously they can't be canonical because he would be in two places at once. So like, because he's obviously at this point he would be on Namek fighting Frieza. Like, but so he has
now Goku does get the yellow aura.
Yeah.
Like the yellow key aura. So so that's sort of what they were saying when it comes to must be the Super Saiyan.
Which I'm gonna say I don't like that because it doesn't happen. He only gets Super Saiyan. Like, so it's a weird thing to be like, oh, now he just has this aura, but he's not Super Saiyan. They were just like, oh, we're tired of using Kaioken, so we're gonna give him this like slight thing to mention to like reference that he's got Super Saiyan over here. But I'm sure this is why I think it's before Super Saiyan, because they were probably like, all right, we're gonna do Super Saiyan. You cannot do Super Saiyan. So you can hint at him being Super Saiyan because it's happening alongside, but you cannot do it. Like, when Cooler comes along, they're like, all right, fuck it. It's already happened. You can do whatever you want in these movies. But I'm sure Toriyama's like, no, you don't get to like, because like I said, I think this probably came out before he was Super Saiyan. So it's like, you don't get this. Which I just thought it was dumb. And it's just like, he just kept saying it. He said it like 4 times. Like, this must be the legendary. It's not. And it's gone in like 10 seconds anyway. So, I don't know. Goku's kind of a bitch in this. He doesn't do anything. Like, of course, everybody gets wiped out, like every one of these movies. And so, then of course, Slug gets big because he's a Namek. And so he's got to get big, which I am curious in this, which I haven't looked up. But in Super Superhero, Piccolo very distinctly talks about, like, he gets big in that movie, but he talks about, like, hey, I'm not any more powerful when I get big. I'm just big. So in this, I'm wondering, now he is a super Namekian, so it could be different, but I'm wondering, is he actually more powerful, or is he the same power level? He's just big. Mm-hmm. I'm assuming he's just big. Because the way Namekians work, he's like, I can get big, but I don't get stronger.
And that's probably something that we would have to look at the King of Piccolo.
Yeah.
And figure out, because that actually brings me to one of my next points. Goku pulls a King Piccolo in this movie. After Gohan whistles, again, because apparently Nameks are weak to whistling.
Especially him, because, and they over-explain this in the dub. This is probably one thing that I want to talk about in this and the next movie, that in the dubbing, they just talk. They just explain everything like you're an idiot. They're just like, this is what I'm doing. This is why. You're just like, I get it. King Kai's up there explaining everything that's going to happen. Like, he's a super Namekian.
And you're like, stupid King Kai voice.
Yeah. And so I'm just like, I get it. Like, I get kids are watching this, But like I said, that's why it's just like insufferable. Like the show never did this.
Mhm.
The show never like over-explained what it was doing. Yes, it had a lot of filler, but it never over-explained what was happening in that direct moment. Like guy's like, I don't need the exposition. Who cares if he's a super Namekian? Like you don't need to explain this to me because you're explaining, but you're not explaining. I don't get any information out of that. You're just telling me that he's a super Namekian, which I would have gotten off of the back of the movie. Like he's a super Namekian, blah, blah. So, yes, super hearing, and they explain that, especially in the dub. They over-explain that, like, oh, well, if it annoyed Piccolo, it must annoy this guy, because his hearing is super. It's 100 times that. So, Piccolo rips off his ears, which is weird, like,
And even then, he only rips off, like, the pointy part.
Yeah, so, he rips him off, and he does this, and you would assume that, like, Slug would just do the same thing, but he doesn't. So he just saw him do this, and he's probably like, why did he just rip his ears off? Yeah. And then he hears the whistling. You would think he would just mimic that and just rip his own ears off, but he doesn't.
No.
And then Goku shoots him in the chest. It's just like...
Well, firstly, he flies through his chest.
Well, he flies through him, yeah.
Just like he did to King Piccolo at the end of one of the tournaments in Dragon Ball.
Yeah. So, I just... That's what I put here. I said, oh no, he's big and it's lame. And then he's like hunting him. I'm like, the whole fight was dumb. It's just belabored. Yeah. It's not great. And then I was like, oh, so, we read this. I'm going to read this plot synopsis again. Lord Slug comes to invade Earth and only Goku can stop him. He only gets stopped because of Gohan's whistling. Because Goku couldn't beat him.
No.
So he only, yes, he beats him, but he only has that opportunity because of Piccolo and Gohan yet again.
Yes.
Goku does nothing in these movies. Like, he's so opposite from what he actually does in the show. It's always Gohan and Piccolo that come, and then Krillin's off somewhere on the ground. Yeah. I'm glad his ass got fucking blown up. Like, at this point, Krillin's dead. Also, yes. This is what's funny. Like, in the show, you're watching these movies, and you're like, Krillin's dead. And then he's a bitch over here. Why do we even need to bring him? Just make him dead, because he's pointless in these movies. I don't know. And then I just put this movie sucks. Yeah. It just... I don't know.
So now, what if any positives do you have?
My only positives are that we get to see Chi-Chi fight a little bit, and I think Gohan, at least, he's not as whiny, other than his... If he hadn't had that damn musical number, like his whistling in the beginning, Gohan would have been pretty great in this.
Yes.
You get a little bit of that, Cell saga, Gohan in this. And I was going to ask, does he have his tail in this?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, he does. That was one of my negatives.
Because it's weird because sometimes you never see his tail. It's wrapped around him. But then in Cooler, you see his tail very prominently. So this is where I'm just what are we going for? His tail is not visible and then it's visible. And I had to think back and I'm like, does he have his tail? I don't ever remember seeing it. But then it's I feel like sometimes when he fights, they cut out his tail. Yeah. And you don't see it. Or it's wrapped around him.
And the funny thing is, in the previous movie, Tree of Might, it got cut off.
Yeah, but he has it again. Like I said, there's no consistency in these, which is fine. I get it. They're one-off movies. But
the only consistency between the movies and specifically Tree of Might and this one is the Haya Dragon / Icarus, and then always being Gohan and Piccolo and Oolong for whatever fucking reason.
See, I'm going to stop mentioning it. If you hear me not talk about Oolong, it's because I'm tired of seeing Oolong. I didn't realize how much I hated Oolong. I just don't like fucking Oolong. It's funny you watch so much modern Dragon Ball that he's just not in it after a certain point. And even in the show, he stops being in it, but he is still in these movies. Because he's not in the Frieza arc at all. You don't ever see him. No. And if you do, it's very briefly. I may be misremembering. Somebody's going to be like, oh, no, he's in there in this episode. But, most of that arc is on Namek, and they're fighting. And Oolong is not on Namek. So it's just having him in here, I'm just who wants Oolong? He's not funny. He's just annoying.
Yes.
None of the bits with him are funny. God.
So now, my positives were... It was the first movie to not start with a wish. The wish came 18 minutes into the movie. All right. And
it wasn't immortality.
Right.
He wanted to just be young.
Yep.
He didn't say forever. He just wanted to be young, in that state. He does say forever? Okay.
Yeah, he did say eternal.
Eternal youth. Yeah, that's right. It's the same shit. So he wants to be immortal. Everybody just wants to be immortal in these movies.
And then one of my other positives is Roshi napping while the world is potentially ending is a whole mood. Like, who wouldn't want that? Like,
yeah, I mean,
the world's ending. I'm not going to be able to do anything. I'm just going to sleep.
He's in Kami house looking at some titties, sleeping. That's what he does. If he goes out, that's the way Roshi wants to go out. See, I don't know. Yeah, overall, I mean, so on our villain scale, where do you think he's at? I mean, again, I think he is like bottom of the barrel. I think he is like, again, I don't think he's better than Pilaf. I don't think he's worse than Pilaf. But again, a lot of these villains are like bottom of the barrel. Right. So again, I think he's like slightly more interesting than Pilaf. Right. Like, but not by much.
Exactly. And according to Toriyama's whole thing, yes, Slug is the strongest villain at this point, but that's just because each movie is supposed to have a stronger villain than the previous movie.
Yeah.
But I'm right there with you. Like, yes, he's strong, but he's not really a threat. Like, well, really, why the hell did he even come to Earth?
I don't understand like that. See, that's where he was on me. And then what's your rating?
So the rating overall, I'd say a 1 or maybe a 2 because of the Gohan and Piccolo fights. Mm-hmm. You got the rare Yajirobe sighting. And then you got the Chi-Chi jumping in for 2 seconds. But when you've got Bulma still just running her mouth when she shouldn't be. And then you got Chi-Chi getting taken out like 3 seconds after she's jumped in with a single punch.
Yeah, she kicks somebody and it's awesome. And she takes out 2 dudes with one kick and then gets hit 1 time. I'm like, all right, Chi-Chi, come on. Right. They're like, they didn't know what to do with it. I'm gonna go with like a 1.5. At some point, it's probably going to be in this next episode. I think we're going to have to reevaluate our Dead Zone review because of where this is at. So
Dead Zone is looking better and better with each movie.
Yeah, I just think. I think I need to adjust it a little bit. It's not going to be by much, and I don't think it's going to get better. I think it's going to get worse in comparison to my next movie. I think where that one sits, it's not higher than it needs to be. But in comparison, I don't think it's on the same level as Dead Zone.
Yes.
So if anything, it's going to go down half a step because I feel like the next movie is above it if we're teasing a little bit. But yeah, this movie's bad. Don't watch this movie. No. I mean, it's not worth. Nothing in this movie is compelling. It's not worth it. I don't. Like I said, other than those few redeeming qualities that we had, I don't think the movie's worth watching for those. Like, and it just like I said, it takes so long to get into the fighting. Yeah, I don't know, man. Cooler's Revenge is like a breath of fresh air in comparison to this. Like,